It's 6 o'clock. We're gonna get going. What do you think?
You sound good.
I'm on mute.
Okay. Well, it's 6 o'clock, so we're are we good on video? We're all good? Okay. So Brian offered to make the font on these bigger, and I said I don't need that. So if I'm playing trombone, please forgive me. But welcome to the 1994th annual meeting of the National Braille Press. My name is Danny Hurst. I'm the chairman of the board of the press and very proud to be so. I've been involved for a little over right around 12 years now. And on behalf of my fellow trustees and staff, we're delighted to have you all here this evening and in person and via Zoom. And thank you to many of the trustees that flew in from varying parts of the country, especially given the reliability of airlines these days. They seem to have had a hiccup over the last couple of days. But we want to introduce some new trustees of NBP, thank some volunteers, recognize trustees that are leaving, and then have an update from Brian on the state of the NBP over the past year and going forward. Now, I'd like to recognize 6 returning trustees that we nominated for a second 3-year term. They are Lisa Marie Martinez, Paul Paravano, Bill Rader, Julie Pirog, Tara Gerhardt, and Neil Rosen. And we're also welcoming 3 new trustees that were voted in at our board meeting this afternoon. The new, I have brief bios on each of them, which I will read. The new trustees include Sarah Kotu. Is she here? I don't know. She's an attorney at John Hancock from West Warwick, Rhode Island. Sarah has volunteered at NBP through John Hancock. She first became interested in blind causes through a family member who works with blind children in the South. She graduated from Northeastern University Law School and Providence College with a Bachelor of Arts in Quantitative Economics. Her work in law began with internships at Millennium Partners Sports Club Management, followed by work at the Federal Reserve Bank of Boston, Bank of America, and U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. Sarah worked for State Street, my old alum, as a paralegal manager, counsel, and senior counsel until 2015 when she joined John Hancock. So welcome, Sarah. Our next trustee is Andrea Travis. She's a blind woman with an extensive background in nonprofit development and communications. She was born in Idaho Falls, Idaho, and also lived in Seattle, Washington for 12 years before relocating to Wichita, Kansas in 2018. Andrea currently works from home as a relationship manager for Inquiron, hope I got that right, an employment law services company based in Boston. Although Andrea learned and loved to read Braille at a young age, she has recently rekindled her passion for reading and literacy. She became connected with NBP as part of the Gala Committee and is interested in deeper involvement with the organization. So welcome, Andrea. And lastly, we have Judy Krimsky, principal of Krimsky Design and Communications. She is an award-winning designer who has maintained a 20+ year relationship with NBP. Judith's passion for literacy has fueled her dedication to NBP, where she has created logos for read-a-books, Because Braille Matters, the Teacher of Visually Impaired Ignition Kit, which is getting tremendous accolades of everyone we send out, annual reports, newsletters, and the Louis Braille on Fire portrait, a colorful rendition of Louis' silhouette, which is still used with the Touch of Genius Prize for Innovation. Judith is also a founding member of the Braille for Life Alliance and has continued to be an NBP supporter through pro bono projects and as a monthly literacy champion supporter. So welcome, Judy. Welcome, welcome, welcome back, right? Would now like to recognize our group and individual volunteer awards. I'd like to call our VP of Development, Joe Q, to the present. All right. Go. Yeah. Thanks, Danny.
Hi, everybody. It is my pleasure to present the volunteer awards for this year at our annual meeting. I do want to give a shout out to Anna Kazmarek, who has been running this program for the last few years and can't be with us right now. But Anna, we messaged from a lot of our volunteers, they miss you and we hope to see you soon. And I think you might be on Zoom. So the Kazmarek family, hello from MVP. So the first award we're going to present tonight is to our Group Volunteer Award, and that goes to the Rhode Island School of Design Alumni Chapter of Boston. Over the last couple of years, due to COVID, you might easily understand why we haven't had as many groups come and volunteer to NBP. But Rhode Island School of Design and the Alumni Chapter of Boston has been relentless in supporting us and being with us when we need the help to not only put books together, working on Braille blocks that will help blind children learn the Braille code and volunteer at our events prior to COVID and post-COVID. So they've been a really energizing group to be with us. And I'd like to present this award to Becky Fong and Diana Wagner from Rhode Island School. And well, you can keep this. Yeah. And Diana's gonna share a few words because thank you.
Thank you so much, Joe. And yes, another shout out to Anna. We do miss you. But I'm so happy to accept this award on behalf of RISD and our alumni groups that have been volunteering with the Braille Press. I have been an enthusiastic volunteer for many years and was really happy to bring the alumni group on board. And we've really found it to be a good annual home for us to have a volunteer event. And we really love the experience that our education is very much rooted in a visual experience, and to give back in this way and help produce the books that help others learn and promote literacy has been a really wonderful experience for us. So we're really happy to continue our relationship and hopefully for many years. So thank you so much, Joe, and thank you to the National Braille Press.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Black. So our next award is our Sue Amater Individual Volunteer Award. Sue Amater was a longtime Braille reader and supporter of National Braille Press and a trustee. And she really embodied rolling up your sleeves and giving and supporting others and serving others with a passion and without hesitation. This awardee is quite special to the blind community, but also me personally. Sydney Feldman is our volunteer award recipient this year, but you can you're going to want to applaud again after I embarrass you a little bit, Sydney. So Sydney has been volunteering for the blind communities for since 1970. Some of you might know the name or knew Al Gazagian, who was a longtime trustee of National Braille Press. So she and her husband, David, have been part of the blind community and National Braille Press community for all that time. It's been 20 years since Sydney started to volunteer with me. And through that time, I've learned a lot. She's spent a lot of time with me, probably about 150 hours a year, I would say. My mom is jealous, Sydney. And my wife might be too, I'm not sure. And during the last 11 years when I've been at National Braille Press, Sydney's helped in tremendous ways to advance our cause, in part working with me by being my editor, proofreader, a sounding board for some of our projects, signing over 12,000 thank you letters for us. So one of the things that we do get a lot of accolades from our donors is that we really do appreciate and care every time someone makes a donation. And Brian and I make the effort to sign every letter with a personalized note. Well, Sydney's my transcriber. And so she's doesn't get hand cramps very often, but she's signed so many notes on my behalf. And she always will maybe give me an idea on what not to say or what to say, but she always will finish with, You don't have to listen to me. And sometimes I do, and sometimes I don't. But also Sydney's and her husband, David, have been extremely generous in leveraging their support. We've been able to get grants because of their support of our community, as well as their generosity has allowed us to produce 2,500 children's Braille books. So Sydney, it's my honor as your friend and someone who you volunteer with to present this to you.
Thank you, Joe.
You haven't seen anything else?
I will.
Okay. Thank you.
Well, you've just heard why it's so much fun to be at National Braille Press. First of all, it's an enormous privilege to be in that building, to get to know people, to get to know the work they do. And I was going to say it's a big challenge to work with Joe, but he's been so nice. I'm not going to say that. I've enjoyed every minute of it. I cherish every minute I'm in that building. And I thank you very, very much for this.
Now I'm going to introduce our next part of the program. It's by Amber Piercy and Lena Corral. It's a presentation on creating brilliant Braille. So Amber and Lena, could you come up?
It's just here on your right.
Great.
Podium.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Let's see if I can get close enough to the mic.
There.
Thank you. Can
Okay.
everyone hear me okay?
Yeah,
All
it's
right.
very high and very much in the middle of a very big podium.
Well, Lena and I are very happy to be with all of you tonight, in person and virtually, to represent the proofreading department at National Braille Press. And we also bring greetings from all of our transcribers. We worked with them to build this presentation so that they would also have a presence. So tonight we're going to walk all of you through the process of creating the high quality Braille products that our customers know and love. So we'll start by discussing the work that the transcribers do with the original print document, and we'll work our way all the way to the final physical product off the presses. So I'll start by talking about the first task of the transcription department, which is to import the print document into a Braille translation program. And when the file is first handed to a transcriber, they might receive it in a few different ways. They could receive it as a Microsoft Word document, a PDF, or a scanned copy. And what I always like to tell people is that even though a transcriber can use these great Braille translation programs, they're not perfect, and human intervention is always recommended to ensure best results. So a transcriber might find themselves needing to correct errors that arise due to a few different issues. There could be just a poor quality scan of the document. The document might have a lot of graphics, particularly if it's a children's book. There might be a lot of graphics, or the font might be kind of a peculiar shape, or use a lot of bold or italics. So those are just things that the Braille translation software doesn't always know how to handle. So the transcriber is really the one who goes in and corrects all those errors and also makes sure that the document is formatted well. And every now and then the translator will just use an incorrect Braille contraction. And so it will just put in the completely wrong word. So a transcriber might have to fix that as well. So once a transcriber does all of this work, they are then able to move on to the more creative part of their job. And in moving on to that portion, they're able to tackle a lot of other details of accessibility. And Lena's going to talk about one of those, which is picture descriptions.
Yeah, thank you, Amber. Thank you. Yeah, so picture descriptions are something we use a lot, especially in children's books. But we do also use them in tests sometimes for standardized tests. But mostly it's for kids' books. And so the transcriber will create their own picture description, and then proofreading will also work with them on that. And so we'll kind of give our opinion if we think it's descriptive enough, or what else it could include, or you know, if we could maybe take something out. And so what we think about when coming up with picture descriptions are identifying where they're needed. So this basically means that it should add information that is not in the text. So if it's a picture description that really doesn't add any information, then we might say it's not necessary. But if it's something like it includes wording that's on a sign in a picture, or a joke, or anything that adds information, even if it seems a little frivolous or not super important to the story, I like to include them, especially for those children's books. We really want to make sure that the kids, the Braille readers, are getting just the same amount of information as the print readers. So, you know, even if it's a joke or anything like that, I think those are still really important to include, and we like to do that. And then also another thing to keep in mind with image descriptions is, you know, keeping them short and readable, not too wordy, especially with children's books. Sometimes the page itself isn't very long, so we don't want the picture description to be too long either. And, you know, just keeping it not very emotive or biased, just succinct and to the point. And Amber will continue with the next part of the process.
Thanks. So the next part of the process, once the transcriber is satisfied with their work, and sometimes if they're not, sometimes they're reluctant to hand it over, but eventually they always have to hand it over to proofreading. So it comes into our department. Depending on a few factors, we might read these files electronically. So tonight, where Lena and I are both, we both have some notes on our note takers, refreshable Braille displays. We might use those. But if the file is a little more complex, if it's got charts and tables and graphics, we may want a hard copy, paper copy produced. And some of our proofreaders just prefer the hard copy Braille. So we have a couple of different ways. So we start the proofreading process, and really that depends on what the customer wants. So some customers may want us to do kind of proofreading in its most sort of simplistic form, which is just to proofread the document, make sure that there are no Braille errors, make sure that all the formatting is okay, and then make sure all the names are spelled correctly. And if that's the case, that's what we'll do. However, some customers do want a little more input.
So they may want us to look out for any grammatical errors or any misspellings. And we have a dialogue with them and ask them if they want certain things corrected, that were, you know, in the document that we got from them. And so if they want those corrections made, we will make them. But if they don't, we will leave the document just as it is. So, but the other process that happens, that a lot of people may not be aware of, is we have a process called text reading. And so many of our documents that come through the department are not only proofread by us, but they're text read. And so this involves a proofreader sitting with a print reader. So we're reading the Braille in tandem with a print reader who may be in person with us in the room. They might be reading over the phone, or they may be recording material and sending us files which we can use at a much later date. So the recording is often done for books that we have a lot of time to produce. So the print reader in this case has to read every instance of capitalization, every punctuation mark. They spell unusual or uncommon words. And they also help us get a better sense of the layout and formatting of the document. And this is especially important if we're reading something with tactile graphics or other complex formats. So we use this proofreading, text reading process when we're doing kids' books. All of our kids' books are text read. But we also do this for our standardized assessments, because this is really the best way to get the most accurate translation and transcription of print to Braille. So after all of this is done, we have written an error sheet or an error report. So we send this report back to transcription, and then a process of corrections begins, and the transcribers might come to us with additional questions, or they might need additional clarifications. So it really is a collaborative process. And we also have a process in place of kind of making sure that all the corrections were made as well. So Lena will kind of take us through the last part, which is the final product.
Yeah, so after all these corrections have been made and the transcriber is happy with how the document has turned out, this whole project gets bound and assembled, and then it comes back up. So we get a physical copy of the book or the test that we have worked on, and it gets checked again by transcription and proofreading. And so transcription will do a visual check of imperfections that might happen, like scratched covers. And then proofreading, we do a check for continuity. So we check all the page numbers, make sure that all the pages are in order, and Braille quality, or if it is a standardized test, we check graphic quality and make sure that that the Braille is not flat, it hasn't gotten smushed or anything like that. And then it goes downstairs again to get packed and shipped. And that's how we that's how the whole process goes. And then if we have projects like some kids books that we will keep reprinting and producing, then over time we do keep getting these physical copies to check the Braille so that it doesn't wear down over time.
And I forgot to grab it, but everybody has a sample of what a final product would look like as the centerpiece, the books that are on everybody's table, so.
Yeah.
So I think now, if we wanted to have we had any questions, I think we have time for just,
I have a question.
all right.
So when you're proofreading all day, you want to read when you go home?
That's probably the top question that I always get.
Yeah.
So, but I guess I'll go first. I sort of have phases where I read for pleasure, for leisure. Believe it or not, when I go on vacation and I'm not working, that's usually when I'll, I like to have a book to read on the plane or a book to read kind of on my vacation. But a lot of times when I'm just kind of doing the daily thing, I don't read too much. What about you, Lena?
Yeah, I'd say I still enjoy reading. I find that the text reading process has gotten so ingrained in my mind that even when I'm reading to myself, I'll still say things like period or yeah, so it really just becomes such a habit.
Obviously, there's many different subject matters. What's your favorite, and what do you do when you find a subject matter that you're just not interested in at all? How do you keep yourself motivated?
Yeah, let's take this one.
Sure. That's a really good question. I think for me personally, I actually really enjoy doing the standardized assessments we do because we get to text read them live with a text reader. And for me, that really helps, even if it's, math or something that might not be particularly enjoyable. Doing it with someone really helps. Just having someone there and chatting here and there or whatever, it just really helps break it up and make it more manageable. So that always helps me.
Yeah, that's true. And you never really know what you might learn. So I found that even if it is a subject matter that isn't particularly interesting, I might be able to take away some little tidbit of information that I didn't know before. And it's nice too, because we have there are about 6 of us, I guess, who are proofreading regularly. So certain people kind of have their niche.
What are you most proud of? What was the most challenging, or which given you the best gratification when you were done?
I really love our children's books. I think that creating that foundation for children when they're tiny, all the way from babies who just enjoy the sensations of the touch and feel board books, all the way up to a kid kind of getting into their first chapter book. I mean, that's really what I enjoy the most, and I think has the most value.
I have a question. Before COVID, I remember being in our kitchen at MVP and hearing 2 other proofreaders, it was not you, discussing exactly what the first question was from Joe about getting at home and reading. And one said, I like to listen to audiobooks when I get home. Yeah. And the other one said, oh, I don't want to do that because I like to have my own voice and get my own description in my mind when I read a book, and I don't want to listen to anybody doing audio. So I'm curious how you feel about that. I'm not making a judgment. I'm just saying it's totally polarized opinions.
Yeah, I fall into the latter camp. I've always gravitated more toward Braille, and just having those words under my fingers has always been something I've really enjoyed. What about you, Lena?
Yeah, I think I like a good audiobook now and then, but I agree. I think sometimes I really just need to read. need to read whatever I'm, trying to learn, or especially, with academics and everything growing up, I really needed that hard copy Braille to really, help things sink in. So, yeah, I think Braille just, it's just not something that can be replaced.
Amber and Lena, that was outstanding. It really gives us a view into the complexity and the collaboration and the quality, and most of all, the care. And on behalf of all the trustees, we really, really appreciate the great work you do. Okay, now Brian is going to join me, and we are going to recognize some of our trustees that are cycling off this year. And I'd like to say,
You read it off.
oh,
That's your job.
okay, all right, you're handing off to me. All right, but I'd like to say a personal thank you. I mean, I took on this role about a year ago, and was a little intimidated. Trying to do this from afar, living in New Jersey, no longer having our presence here in Boston, but having a great excuse to come up here from time to time and see my friends. But I really appreciate all the support that all of the trustees have given us, but especially these trustees that are leaving us hopefully for just a short time. So I'd like to thank Joe Abley for your years of service as the trustee, the committee chair, and advisor. Chris Cavallaro, wait, I am consistent, Chris. Chris Cav, for your years of service as a trustee, committee chair, and advisor. Ian Cross for his years of services as a committee chair and advisor. Mark Sadecki, again, had chaired committees and an advisor. Paul Schroeder, again, another one of our committee chairs and advisors. And lastly, Matt Sullivan, again, committee chair and advisor. All right, now we're on to Brian. There he is for our update on state of the affairs.
The state of NBP, I guess. Thank you, Danny. And again, Amber and Lena, that was wonderful. And I will say that we offer tours at National Braille Press for those that ever interested in seeing. That's just the tip of the iceberg. And there's so much more that has to be done. And when people actually take a tour, they're amazed at how labor intensive it is in many ways to produce a document in Braille. And you're welcome anytime anybody is in town or wants to do one, please reach out to us and we'll be happy to schedule that. So usually 2 weeks notice though. But anyway, thank you very much, you guys. You did a great job. So hello to trustees. Thank you very much. People in this room, friends, supporters, and remotely for other volunteers and supporters that aren't here in person. I have to say, first of all, it is great to have people in person again. It makes such a difference. And even today, earlier this afternoon, we had our board meeting. And again, we've had 2 years of no board meetings in person. And even for our trustees to be there in person, it was great. And trustees that hadn't met each other before even. So we're finally feel like we've broken out a little bit and it was really rewarding. So thank you all for being here tonight. So this is when I give a brief update on the state of National Braille Press from the prior year. And I also want to talk a little bit about what we are working on going forward. So COVID still, as you can imagine, our fiscal year goes from April 1st to March 31st. And during that period, even this past year, we still had challenges we were facing. We had anticipated some of them thanks to Joe's department in development. One of the very first examples that overlapped the year was we expected and were correct that the Boston Marathon was going to be canceled. And Joe and his team and his fundraising people that work with running events got together in a committee and came across with the invention of Braille across America, which some of you may have heard of. And it was like the perfect timing where this event was something over the course of our birthday on March 17th through Patriots Day, which is the marathon day normally, that we would have people as individuals or teams run, walk, roll one marathon, a 26.2 mile minimum over the course of those 33 days or whatever it is, 32 days, 33 days. And it was the perfect timing because everyone had been so cooped up. They were great to break out of their homes and have the freedom over a period of time on their schedule to participate in this event on a national basis. So our goal was to, we hope to make some money to offset the marathon fundraisers. We have a couple of runners usually that would do that. And it just blew up. And we had 172 participants, I believe, across the country. Joe's nodding yes, so I must be right. Over that period of time, everyone would log their miles every day. And we hoped to make it from San Francisco to Boston. We had put this imaginary route. We actually had enough activity that we went from San Francisco to Boston, back to San Francisco, and across the Golden Gate Bridge a few times. So it was pretty good. And then it was so successful that we did it again this past April for another crack at it. And the combined two events so far have raised almost $200,000. So it was much more than we ever expected. And we're now trying to figure out what the normal curve will be for the future growth of that and how we can market it and make it just as exciting it was for these 2 years for those that participated. And this year we did have a lot of new people attend this year, which was great. So we just have to think about how we're going to do more outreach and marketing with it, but we're pretty excited about it, and it was a great success. So we did adapt pretty well during year 2 of COVID, which is still hanging around a little bit, but we're doing well with it. Last year at this meeting, I actually mentioned one of the things that we're doing also is starting a national awareness campaign about our mission about Braille and how critical it is that people understand from the general public that Braille is literacy by definition, and it's how important it is for independence and language and skills and for students and adults to learn for their careers and for their work life and everything else. I'm pleased to say that National Braille Press produced a 30-second commercial PSA, I like to call it commercial too, that talked about who we are. And in 30 seconds, which is really 27 seconds, because you have to have a trailer, to get the message across that we produce Braille, we believe in Braille literacy and tactile literacy, and we wanted individuals to give their reasoning why it was important. So we had 3 people. We had a young child who has been at our gala who talked about Braille. We had a 20-something-year-old who had graduated who was talking about Braille and how it impacted her life. And then we had an older professional person who's at this table over here somewhere. No, I'm just one. Paul Pervana was also in the commercial. Thank you, Paul, you'll get royalties later. But what I was most pleased about was they all told what Braille meant to them. And it really pulled together in 27 seconds to give a really strong message. And I'm really happy to say that thanks to one of our trustees, the head of accessibility at Comcast, Tom Blodkowski, Comcast picked it up and they're running it for a year now, still running now from when we started it. And it's been all major networks, all of their channel outreach across the country. And I've heard from feedback from people, it was played during the March Madness, it was played at primetime, shows on TV networks. And Paul's had some people reach out to him, the superstar Paul here in our audience tonight, who was in the PSA as well. So we're continuing to do that. Since then, thanks to our public relations firm, 7 Letter, we got the Astound RCN network to also make their own trailer for those 3 seconds and put their logo on it. And it's now in their networks, which are not just Greater Boston. I guess there was some kind of merger or something with it. I'm not sure. But it's also in New York State, Oregon, Pennsylvania, Texas, Washington State, and Washington, D.C. So that's pretty neat. And we're hoping next to get Verizon to do it. Tom has some connections there, and we're hoping we can get them next to put it on their networks as well. But through these efforts, we're hoping that the general public that love to read and really appreciate literacy will finally get more awareness about how important Braille is for that same cause for early readers, as we talked about, that Amber likes so much to do the kids' books, right through, you know, your career and technology and all the other types that we do with our publications department. Another area that we have is a virtual Center for Braille Innovation that manages the Touch of Genius Prize. And this past year, we gave out a prize to a company called Number 4 Blind. And in fact, I will do a show and tell as I describe it, because I actually brought it with me by mistake with my cell phone, because it's roughly the same size as a cell phone. And many people that are in the blind low vision community know about apps where you can type on the virtual keyboard to do a Braille key, you know, like a Perkins Braille typing layout. And that's what this has physically on it on the front of this device. Not that you can see it well, but what's nice about it is this was made specifically, it's called the Braille Hapticom Communicator. And it's for deafblind people to use. So actually what you do is, and our Touch of Genius Prize has an amazing bunch of judges, including Janet Albrecht-Saka, who's in the audience tonight, Paul Piravano, who's in the audience tonight, superstar and Touch of Genius committee member. But we actually were amazed when we look at a lot of different types of innovations, and we were amazed what this could do. And I'll describe it briefly. So if I was the deaf-blind person, I could type on this physical keyboard, "Hello, my name is Brian," and the person I'm sending it to could come up to me and press this button here. And well, actually, I'd press the button, and it would translate what I typed in Braille to a synthetic voice. The person could go back to me, press this button, and dictate into this device, "How can I help you?" And it would then vibrate on the Braille keyboards and translate the message in Braille so that you could read it. And that's just astounding to me. And we're obviously helping them bring it to market. They think it'll be a final price of like $500. Maybe with inflation, it's a little higher now. But that's an amazing price, less than an iPhone, you know, or an Android phone. I'll be objective, but it's quite an amazing feat, and we're really proud to help them bring it to market. And there's a backstory to it that I won't talk about, but I will just say that it had a lot of challenges with the Ukraine and Russia and all the things going on overseas too, because it originally was a foreign country where it was built. So anyway, we're pretty proud to work with them on that. I also mentioned last year that we had 2 great supporters and private foundations to get started our Children's Braille Book Club again, like the books on your table, that we've had a subscription service for many years, and we wanted to make it free going forward. And we had the goal of making it free for everyone within 5 years. So we had two different foundations come together and fund it for us. And we have, in year 2 now, increased our subscription to 300 kids per month that are getting these books for free. And we're on a good trajectory so far to make it free in 5 years, and we'll see how it goes. It's a lot more work for our people at NBP to put the volume out as it increases, but luckily proofreading has to do it once, but we have to produce a lot more books for it. But we're proud about that. It's done very well. I also wanted to mention something that we started thinking about 2 years ago on a strategic direction about. We've always been National Braille Press that produces the tools to support Braille literacy with books and periodicals and tools to support learning and tactile graphics. But we never vertically integrated to support the teachers of visually impaired, the TVIs. So we had done a survey of teachers of 2,500 students about maybe a year and a half ago now. And we anecdotally thought what was going on, but this kind of helped confirm it. And what it was is that teachers responded by saying they don't have the resources they need to even teach Braille. They don't have all the materials they need and training they need for accessible technology and STEM-related subjects. And this wasn't any kind of big, famous, huge survey, but it was pretty good in showing that 98% of them all said they lacked the physical materials and resources to teach Braille. 44% never had any tactile graphics training in their career. And 31% never had any training in accessible technology. And that's because the variety across this country, first, there aren't a lot of colleges that have programs for TVIs, but the variety of how it's taught is so different too, that I can see why there's been gaps in some parts of the country. But it certainly got us motivated to say, we want to help with this, because obviously we want to support the teachers who teach the kids that we want to continue working with. And we were able to get 2 new grants, both independent, like the Children's Braille Book Club, but this was also the Reader's Digest Partners for Sight Foundation and the Frank Gibney, the Gibney Family Foundation, that joined together to provide us support to do this, to give out these Braille ignition kits, we're calling them, which are a book bag basically with all the materials for these 4 kits of information for Braille, accessible training, STEM, science, in a backpack that is stuffed. And we give them out for free to teachers across the country. So we've had great feedback from some of them. We did 1 batch already. We're now getting materials ready for a 2nd batch we'll do later this summer. But we're proud that we're doing it. We're hoping to have it even continue on a larger scale in the future with some other areas we're working on to get funding for. But we're pretty proud and pleased that it's so far done really well. So on a organizational point of view, I'll just kind of finish by saying that I'm pleased to say that National Braille Press is still an organization that is sound financially. We have no debt. We work really hard. All of our staff work very, very hard to get the work done. This year was really difficult because we didn't have enough people, and we had really long hours. I felt like I was running a sweatshop. I'm not kidding. It was brutal. Can you rewind that and cut that out? But it was very difficult times, but our staff were so committed to all the work we did, but we were shorthanded tremendously. We had things happen during the year that were difficult. With one person got T-boned in a car accident, was out and who ran our test production side. And we just had a lot of unfortunate things come together. But we are hiring lots of people now. We've hired a lot of people in production. I've bought more equipment. We're gearing up to not have that unbelievably crushed, difficult time. And I will say, for anybody listening, if you know anyone who wants to be a transcriber or proofreader like Lena and Amber, email me at press@nbp.org. That's my commercial for the night. And we are recruiting and obviously trying to hire more people and train them more on how we do things for formats and everything. But we're in a good position. We've been growing regularly over many years. And again, adding more bodies now and training them during the slower part of the education season will get us up to speed to hopefully have a ability to grow and not, really put a lot of pressure on our staff. So I'm very pleased about that. I'm really proud of all of you. I thank everybody that supports us and all of our staff. And thank you for coming tonight, and have a good evening. Thank you. That's the end of the program. You can mill around.